Hello, my name is Miranda Middleton and I'm the director of this production. As we gather on Bunwurrung and Wurundjeri country, home to the custodians of the Kulin Nation, I pay my respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I also wish to thank our three amazing disability and access consultants, Nilgan Govan, Lauren Hayes and Sophie Delizio, for helping us compile this video, which offers a glimpse into our company's journey in bringing this story to the stage. When I first saw The Grinning Man in London 6 years ago, what really struck me about the story was its core of humanity. And we know that Victor Hugo was an artist who fought and championed for equality of rights, so much so that he was actually exiled from France for denouncing the reign of Napoleon III. And so he wrote the source material, The Man Who Laughs, in exile. And there is a kind of common thread of championing characters who live with difference within the canon of Victor Hugo novels, such as The Hunchback of Notre Dame and also The Grinning Man. So I guess when approaching this story and being the first team outside of the UK to bring it to the stage, we had some really big conversations around casting, and what was really important to us was that we had authentic representation within our cast of performers with disabilities. Producer Ashley Taylor Tickell.
When we started the casting journey for The Grinning Man, we knew that it was important to us to cast the show as authentically as possible to create honest representation of the society and the communities of which we are a part. When we first started, we did our initial round of auditions and cast some incredible performers, and then had the opportunity to do another round of auditions in which we, after speaking to our consultants, Nilgan and Lauren, knew very deeply that we needed to kind of expand our horizons even further and really think outside the box in order to find, in particular, a performer who was blind to play the role of young Dea.
So on day one of our rehearsals, we had a Zoom, we had Sophie on Zoom, and we had Nilgan and Lauren in the room with us, and we had an open discussion with the cast about what it means to tell this story in 2024, and more largely, I guess, the lack of accessibility of the arts in Australia. And so working with Lily, who is blind, and Shelley, who is low vision, and Matt, who has cerebral palsy, they bring so much richness and individuality to our production of The Grinning Man, and we're incredibly proud to have these gorgeous performers within our ensemble. Lily Caskin, who plays young Dea.
I grew up seeing very little representation of disability in the arts, and I'd like to think that maybe this can help be a starting point for more representation. I mean, for me, I guess it would be that an opportunity for me came out of nowhere. So they should never give up on a hope of that dream being fulfilled. And there's always a chance if you work hard enough and look hard enough and find it in the right places. And hopefully we'll get some more representation in the future, and we won't have to grow up with not seeing that representation.
Matthew Hearn, who plays young Grinpain.
I don't think there's enough disabled representation out there, full stop. Whether or not it's seeing disabled actors in traditionally able-bodied roles, or whether or not it's seeing disabled actors in roles specifically written to be disabled characters or for actors with disabilities to play. I have cerebral palsy myself, and I've never worked with other disabled actors. So for me personally, that's something that's really cool.
Two of our consultants, Lauren and Sophie, on the larger themes and context of the show.
Hi, I'm Lauren Hayes. I'm a digital and arts accessibility consultant with lived experience as someone who is blind. While The Grinning Man is fictional, it reveals some uncomfortable truths about the history of people with disabilities.
Show us a hideous, horrible face.
We know from Roman times until well into the 20th century, people with disabilities like me were used as entertainment for the public.
I am the freak show. I am the freak show. Watch me smile.
The Grinning Man explores the unfortunate reality of the freak show, popular during the Victorian era. We were put on display, and if we were lucky, we might earn a living if our employers were generous enough to share the freak show earnings. For the public who came to watch, these displays and performances elicited feelings of pity and gratitude. Those poor people, thank goodness I'm not like them.
It wipe the tears you cry. Your pity I despise.
Unfortunately, this is not dissimilar to how people with disabilities are still perceived in many cases today. While the freak show is thankfully no longer alive and well, charities frequently use us in their advertising campaigns to make the public feel both sorry for and inspired by us, so the donations will keep rolling in. It is not just the dominance of charitable services which is problematic for us in the disabled community. Medically, we are seen as being broken, problems that need to be fixed. However, the social model of disability, something which disability rights activists have been advocating for over the last 60 years, says that it is not disability which disables us, but accessibility barriers and attitudes that society places upon us. For example, I can independently purchase tickets to a theatre show online if the website is designed to be accessible with my screen reading software. The visual aspects of the performance itself are accessible thanks to features like tactile tours and audio description. 70% of people who are blind are unemployed, yet I'm sure this would change if potential employers presumed competence rather than thinking of us as an occupational health and safety risk. As you watch The Grinning Man, reflect on the ways in which societal attitudes create barriers and how you can be part of changing this narrative.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Delizio. I am a burn survivor and disability advocate through my work on social media. As a theatre lover myself, I've always struggled with the reality of accessibility and being able to be involved in a theatre production due to not many people understanding the true needs of someone with a disability. When you're watching the show today, I want you to keep in mind that although this was written a long time ago, these themes are so relevant to this day. What these characters are feeling are still very common occurrences across the world of the disability community. The fact that the team here today were able to listen to our stories and adapt their show to make it as inclusive for their cast and crew as possible is just such an important lesson, and I can only hope that in the future more companies will do the same.
Cast members Maxwell Simon, Shelley Dunlop and Jennifer Valetic on what it means to tell this story in 2024.
You know, I think the whole, freak show thing is such a brutal kind of part of history.
The source of your fears.
And it's good to look at it and be like, this is something that was that happened and was a real thing, and in a lot of ways still is a real thing, just on different levels.
It's icky to portray someone who's watching and enjoying it. It's kind of yuck to think that it's a real thing that happened in our history.
It was all real, I swear it was. Come back!
And I think sometimes being confronted with that can kind of be a good thing, because we can think about, well, we don't display people in this way anymore in such a obvious way, but in what ways are we still othering people? In what ways is our society still kind of doing this, albeit maybe in more subtle ways?
I think from the inside, you find yourself assessing and reassessing yourself in terms of your prejudices, your attitudes, the things you've never considered before. This story is something that offers you the chance to I guess, continually investigate your own behaviour and your own responses and your own responsibility.
Consultant Lauren Hayes speaks further to the ongoing lack of representation of disability in the arts.
We have a long way to go to ensure that people with disabilities are represented equally on stage, let alone on screen. Only 6% of characters on screen are portrayed as having a disability. 8% of people on screen have a disability, and only 5% of people working behind the camera have a disability. As a child, I rarely saw films or read books where blind people were just average. They were doing inspirational things like climbing Mount Everest. Or at the other extreme, they were helplessly stuck at home, relying on support of others for everything. I didn't feel like I fit into either of those extreme categories. Blindness was always a central part of the narrative, not simply an identifying characteristic like height or hair colour. Where were the teachers, the lawyers, the teenagers who just happened to be blind? And if blindness was to be a central part of the story, why were other people telling these stories for us? Where were the script writers who were blind, making sure that we were portrayed and cast authentically?
Cast members Shelley Dunlop, Louisa Scrofani and Matthew Hearn.
I think that as someone with a disability, I came into this rehearsal process with my own ideas about that, but I am one person with one experience, and it's been wonderful to work with other artists who have varying experiences of disability in their own lives, and also with our consultants.
I found that working with Lauren was really valuable because I was able to take her expertise and her lived experience into my performance as Dea, and I think it's meant that I've been able to present something that's really informed and not based on any fabrication. It's coming from truth. And obviously because Lily brings that lived experience as a person who is blind, I can observe her in space, and I think the way that she can hold herself in space, the way that she interacts in a conversation, all of her little mannerisms, I've tried to maybe borrow a flavour of those and put them into my own Dea portrayal so that what you're seeing on stage, again, is grounded in truth.
I think one of the best things about being a part of this company that has been so committed to telling a story that puts disabled characters at the forefront of the story, and also that has been so committed to casting multiple actors with disabilities on stage, is that we've really done our very best to tell these stories authentically and with sensitivity and compassion and respect at the forefront of the storytelling, for us to have our voices heard and our faces seen and our bodies seen, I think is something that's really special. And I think that the more that is the case, the more audiences are able to get used to seeing that.
Beyond this production, we feel like we're just at the beginning of our journey as artists and as independent theatre practitioners. We're aware that there are things that we weren't able to do on this show that we would love to do in the future. But I think what this show has done is sparked, it's really sparked something within me as an artist, a real desire to learn more about accessible art making and inclusive theatre practices. Finally, Nilgan will share some vital takeaways about accessible and inclusive art making.
Hi everyone, I'm Nilgan Govern from Vita Veritas, and I work with all parts of the creative industries for organisations, festivals, venues, events and shows to be as accessible as possible for disabled audiences, artists and workers. It's really important to consider accessibility from the beginning of a project and not at the end as a tack-on or as an afterthought, and to apply good and best practices to all your approaches. It's critical to involve, to co-design and consult with people with lived experience, as well as service providers and specialists in planning processes. Make sure you remunerate disabled people for their work and labour, as well as for their access requirements fairly and equitably. Seek professional development and training, tools and resources that are now widely available to improve your disability confidence and competency. Ask yourself, what is the difference between access and inclusion, disability awareness and confidence, and can we make art accessible to all people? Be collaborative, invite, welcome, and work with diversity in your workplace and art-making processes. Be flexible, factor in time. Budget for accessibility. Access should be a key item in all budgets, grants, and submissions. Access should also be part of all production and event plans. And don't forget about access in your audience development and marketing plans too. Build meaningful relationships with the community. Commit to what accessibility you can provide and be able to communicate what accessibility you can't provide. Address the barriers that exist in your company, environment, procedures, and culture that impact disabled people's ability to participate, engage, and gain employment and/or enjoyment in the arts. Become an access champion or disability ally to help address these challenges. Learn about identity and language and how it constantly evolves. Learn about disability justice, disability pride, and intersectionality. Be aware of inspiration porn, tokenism, overcompensation, and virtue seeking. See the work of other disabled and inclusive companies and artists who have been championing best practice and high quality theatre for years and years. Broaden your understanding and the value of the aesthetics of access in these works. Explore these, experiment with these. Spark curiosity about taking integrated or embedded approaches to access and inclusion. Learn about and provide all sorts of accessibility and services that is becoming more prevalent across the arts in Melbourne and Australia and across the world today, such as ensuring your venues are wheelchair accessible, providing an accompanying access guide or visual story or social script, and other effective ways of providing information to people who are blind or have low vision, those who are deaf or hard of hearing, neurodivergent, or have autism, such as Braille, large print, easy read, transcripts, open captioning, and Auslan videos. Offer relaxed performances, audio description, tactile tours, Auslan interpretation. The use of their access symbols and icons, as well as oral and content ratings, are also becoming commonplace. And don't forget alt text for images. Most importantly, when working with people with disability, never assume. Always ask what people need, what they prefer, and how can we make this a better experience. To be inclusive requires respect, real-life engagement, learning by doing, making it part of your thinking and practice, and continuously improving and listening. And underpinning all that you do and how you do it is the principle of nothing about us without us, centering disabled leadership, representation, and equity at the core.